Hello, welcome to mmlearn.org. I'm Erin Bonito. I am the lead coach and founder of Gemini Consulting and the Gemini Life Enrichment Institute for Dementia. Welcome to our topic today. We'll be discussing dementia, dining, and dignity at the dinner table. Let me tell you a little bit about how this topic came to be. As a dementia coach, I spend an awful lot of time working with nursing homes and assisted living centers and memory care communities all over the country. And even in the best of the best places, some of us are still struggling with how to make the mealtime a very wonderful and dignified experience for the person with dementia. Unfortunately, too often, the situation is that our aging service providers find that our caregivers haven't mastered the art and science of dementia communication. And what results then is sometimes a disheartening, sometimes an undignified, and sometimes even a dangerous situation, especially during meal times. So when they should be experiencing the comfort of a familiar routine, the persons with dementia are instead experiencing confusion during their meals. They're experiencing frustration during their meals and too often experiencing anxiety during the meals. Maybe you've seen times in your own dining room where you see a caregiver standing over the person. They're not describing the food. There's no interaction. It's happening wordlessly. And certainly we would all agree, and I know we do, that that's not dignity for the person with dementia. Maybe we see our caregivers talking over or around the person as if they're not even there, chatting with their coworkers about what's going to happen after this and what time folks get off work. That's not dignity for the person with dementia. If you feel that you may have a situation evolving where there's sort of an undignified or ungracious pattern starting to occur in your dining rooms for people who have dementia, I will suggest a quick little check that you can do. I will describe 4 things for you to check for. Spend a little bit of time in the dining room, kind of be a mouse in the corner, if you will, or pass through. And at each interaction point, now what is an interaction point? At each interaction point, for instance, when a caregiver brings the person to the table, that's an interaction point. Or when the caregiver offers a bite of food, that's an interaction point. Or when the caregiver brings the plate, that's an interaction point. Look at all those interaction points and make a little mark, do a little quick check for the following things. Maybe, for instance, you see that task talk has happened. Maybe the meal has gotten over, and as the person is being wheeled away from the table, the caregiver says, "We have to get you cleaned up now." Well, that's talk about a task. That's really not talk about a person. Maybe you find that the interaction is absolutely wordless. The person is brought to the table and they're unceremoniously parked there and the caregiver walks away. So that would be a no talk. Maybe at an interaction point while the meal is being delivered, you notice that there's staff talk. This is the staff members or caregivers talking to one another as if the resident isn't there. Hopefully, what you hear at a lot of these interaction points is person talk and dementia cueing. Maybe, for instance, if the caregiver brings the plate, she says, "Helen, I think you will like this." Or maybe as the person is offering a bite to the person with dementia, she says, "Green beans with bacon." When we hear things like that, that's person talk or dementia cueing. Audit a few of your meals, audit a few of your dining rooms, and see what patterns emerge. Maybe, for instance, this is a pattern that will emerge. Maybe you'll get all sorts of little check marks by staff talk, and you'll get a whole lot of check marks by task talk. Well, then you know that you may have a dining situation where there's just too much talking going on, and the talking that's going on is not person-centered, and it's not helping the person with dementia. Maybe, though, your quick check will reveal a different kind of a pattern. If you look at our red marks here, you notice looking at the red, we see an interaction where there's really a lot of wordless interaction going on. Very little task talk, very little staff talk. very little person talk. That might be a situation where the dining experience has become almost silent and certainly not pleasurable and social for the person with dementia. Doing this quick check a number of times in a number of different dining rooms might give you a sense as to what is the situation you hope to address and what plan do you make going forward. Now, if you don't do a quick check, for many of you that's going to be A-okay, because many of you are already and you will continue to use your eyes and your ears to see if there's a dignified situation going on. I'm going to feature a lot of photos today from a place that I collaborate with frequently, St. James Retirement Community in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. St. James has been on an initiative to improve their dining situations, and I have to say that they have very, very good dining situations to start with. This is a situation where they've tried to take some good dining experiences but make them exceptional dining experiences. So you see in this photo, this is a nurse who has brought someone very recently to the, I believe it's to the breakfast table there. And rather than just quickly turning around and skirting away to go get the next resident and bring the next resident to the dining table, she is taking a few moments to get below eye level and actually introduce the two people to one another so that they know the person that they're sitting by. If you saw that in your dining room, you would not need an audit. You would know that's dignified. Here's an example of an administrator. Instead of whisking through briskly and cheerfully and saying, hello, hello, how's lunch today? Instead of whisking through, he's getting down on bended knee to this person who has gone to the point in her dementia where really what she understands is her first language, and her first language was French. And he's taking a few words to sing the one French song that he knows, taking those few French words that he knows, and I know because I was standing there getting a small chuckle out of her. If you saw this, you'd know that's dignified. Here's a nursing assistant. She's successfully delivered the plate of food. You see it sitting right there. But because she knows this woman can be especially anxious, she's taking those extra few moments to reassure her that this is her food, that it's meant for her, and it's okay to eat it. If you saw that happening in your dining room, you'd know that was dignified. But if you're wishing you could see more of these interactions, if you feel that you're not seeing enough of these interactions, then maybe a plan for dementia education and dementia communication coaching is in order for you. So I'd like to share a few tips with you, things that we've learned in our collaborations. Thinking about dementia communication coaching for dining, what's the first thing we need to think about? I think the first thing we need to think about is what is the education that the frontline caregiver needs to have. For instance, too often our caregivers don't know the significant impact that dementia has on dining. Too often our caregivers are whizzed through a very fast orientation, or whizzed through a very fast dementia in-service, and we take for granted that they know all these things when in fact they don't. So we need to make sure that our caregivers know the ways that dementia impacts dining. It certainly impacts the person being able to remember what was ordered. Very often, when that roast beef sandwich is brought and they say, I didn't order this, the caregiver says, yes, you did. I've got the slip right here. That's a caregiver who doesn't know just the full impact of dementia. The person may not remember which meal this is, whether it's breakfast or lunch or dinner. The person may not remember why they are in this room. The person may not remember when the food will be coming. The staff member may say, well, no, sit down. The trays will be up in a few minutes. Well, that's almost meaningless to the person with dementia. The person with dementia may have difficulty initiating eating. That means simply picking up the spoon and starting. The person may have difficulty switching between eating and drinking. The person may eat their bowl of cereal, but not have the ability to put down the spoon and switch gears to pick up the glass. The person may have difficulty adding things or may not understand what to do next, and certainly the person may have difficulty initiating conversations. These are a few of the key facts that our caregivers need to know about dementia and dining. I think it's also helpful for caregivers to know about the age-related impacts. Regardless of Alzheimer's disease or regardless of other dementias, there are things that happen to all of us as we age. Folks who age have a significant decrease in their taste buds. So the food doesn't taste always like they remember it, or the food doesn't taste as good as they remember it. When you hear a person saying, they never get the soup right around here, I wish they'd get the soup right, that may not be a comment on the cook so much as it is a comment on the person losing their taste buds. Dry mouth, decreased ability to smell, those are things that also take away taste. Age-related hearing impairments affect the mealtime situation because folks can't hear their table mates or understand things. Dentures reduce taste. Dulled vision makes foods look less vibrant or less appealing. And then when there are special preparations, such as the food being pureed or the food being ground, that takes away the familiar textures. So when you combine the difficulties associated with dementia with these mealtime difficulties, that's quite an amount of information that we need to get to our caregivers. And I'm convinced that a lot of our caregivers don't have this baseline information about dementia and meals. So, when it comes to coaching, and that's the next part, after we get that baseline education done, when it comes to coaching, where do we start? Well, I think that the mealtime experience starts right from the moment that we guide the person to the room. Let me show you too often what that guiding looks like. We're going to imagine that Tracy is a person with very advanced dementia. Perhaps she's in her jerry chair and she's leaned back. Maybe she spends a lot of the day that way, with her arms drawn up and her eyes sort of unfocused. And I'm a really busy caregiver, and I have a whole lot of folks to get to the dining room for lunch. So perhaps this is the way that you see me escort Tracy. Maybe you've seen that. And if you have, what you saw was Tracy jerk. You saw her be startled. And in jerking and being startled, by the time she gets to the dining room, now she's much tighter, she's much more guarded, she's much more protected. And if she's been hurked or jerked one too many times and has gotten the association that she cannot trust us, she may well clamp her teeth down and be like this, almost with a locked jaw. Now, there's a lot of reasons that locked sort of jaw can happen, but I think one of the big ones is this sense that I have to protect myself from the people around here. I have to close myself off from the people around here. So, for somebody like Tracy, who has a very advanced dementia, maybe she doesn't speak anymore, or she speaks very, very little, what would be the ways that we could assist her? And what do we need to coach our caregivers? I think it's important to coach on the following. First, getting below eye level. When I'm below eye level, everything changes. I increase the odds that she'll sense that a person is here, and I'll increase the odds that if she can turn her head, that she'll be able to focus on me. The next thing we need to coach our caregivers on is simple statements. Simple statements are usually 7 words or less, and sometimes we repeat them in a low, calm way to help gently increase the person's alertness. Tracy. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning. I'm Erin. It's time for breakfast. Oatmeal with brown sugar today. I knew you liked your oatmeal, Tracy. I'm going to move your chair. There'll be a little bump. But we will get to the dining room. So you notice, in doing that, I was very slow. I was very deliberate. And our experience has been, both at St. James Place and in many of the other communities that I've collaborated with around the country, our experience has been that when people are approached and guided to the dining room in this way, they come not only more alert, but they come more accepting of the food, more accepting of the cueing, more accepting of the drinks, because we've started the interaction in a way that doesn't get them guarded and trying to protect themselves from us. The next part of coaching that I think is important to focus on is cueing friendship. Too often our caregivers are in such a race that they bring the person to the table and they race off. And for the person with dementia, they're not sure who they're sitting with. They're not sure why they're sitting with this person. So for instance, let's imagine now that Tracy has more of let's say a moderate dementia and less of an advanced dementia. And I'm going to imagine that I've brought her to the table. We'll imagine that our table mate is sitting right here. And as I bring them together, again, I get below eye level. I might say to my imaginary person here, I might say, Bertha, I want to introduce you to a real crackerjack. Tracy, I just told Bertha you're a real crackerjack. Maybe we'll shake and we'll make it official. You notice in doing this, it was not a boring introduction, if you will. We might say things like, I want you to meet a real crackerjack, or I want you to meet the one and only Estelle, or you are the two best looking women at the table. I know, you're the only women at the table. What we're doing there is we're helping the people get a spark, a little spark we often call an endorphin boost. When someone chuckles, when someone bursts into a smile, they've had an endorphin boost. So if we can blend that friendship cueing with that endorphin boost, we greatly increase the odds that these folks can take pleasure in one another's company. Anecdotally, I will say in the communities where we've done this sort of coaching and training, when we look around the dining room in that time just prior to meals coming, we see a tremendous increase in the amount of pleasant chit-chatting between the residents, whereas previously we might have seen folks pushing back, looking around, trying to leave the room. But this pleasant chit-chat gives them a focus and keeps them there. Let's talk about how we might coach for presenting the meal. I'll show you a couple of what not to do's for how we present the meal. Again, you may have a very hurried caregiver thinking of all the trays or meals that she or she has to deliver. and it may look like this. There you go, hon. Now, for the person with dementia, what just happened right there? Do they know for sure that they received a meal? Maybe not. Do they have any idea what the meal is? Maybe not. Do they know that this is intended for them? Maybe not. We missed an awful lot of chances to cue. Now here's another way that you might see that is different, but equally doesn't work. Hi, Tracy. Good morning. We've got your favorite scrambled eggs, sausage links, toast. And I already put the jelly on and the butter on. You are good to go. I hope you love your breakfast. Mwah. Have a good morning. Now, for the person with dementia, does she know that she got her meal? Not necessarily. Does she know what it is? Not necessarily. You noticed I said all the things, but I said them so fast, and it's such a quick clip there, and I used so many words that she may have not been able to catch almost any of what I was saying there. So as we collaborate with retirement communities, here's the way that we've coached on presenting the meal. It starts by getting down below eye level and being sure that the person sees our face before they see anything else. We really want that to have their attention before we cue for the meal. Hello, Tracy. Your favorite, grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Grilled cheese.
I knew you'd be asking for seconds, so I put on an extra half sandwich.
Don't tell anybody.
If it hasn't killed us yet, it's not going to kill us now. Enjoy, Tracy. You notice some of the key things I did there. I got down below eye level. I had a very sparkling face, making sure that she was interested in me first. I used some very, very simple statements. Your favorite meal. I knew you'd ask for seconds. I put on an extra half sandwich. Again, we define simple statements as 7 words or less, and I think most of those qualified. And you notice I used phrasing that, for lack of a better word, is meant to sell the meal. I went far beyond just describing it. On the slide here, you see some examples of this. Hot out of the oven. I made it just for you. Mashed potatoes with extra butter. Green beans with bacon. All of those meant to sort of enhance the pleasure that we hope this person will get from the meal. There are all sorts of ways that we might coach our caregivers. We might coach on what we call food cueing for appetite and pleasure. Food cueing means that for the person with very, very advanced dementia, rather than just wordlessly putting the spoon into their mouth, I let them know what's coming. If they're on a pureed or ground diet, this is especially important because they've probably lost a lot of the cues for what this is. Tracy, It's your favorite. Lasagna. Here's another bite. More lasagna for you. You noticed I included that word lasagna. Now, I may not say lasagna on every single bite, but I'm going to certainly say it more than one time. I'm certainly going to say it frequently. I'm going to repeat it. I'm also going to let her know every single time that I switch the food. If you can imagine receiving warm bites of lasagna into your mouth only to unexpectedly get cold peaches, or unexpectedly get green beans, or unexpectedly get a drink of water, those things are shocking, those unannounced changes. And I think those unannounced changes, again, are another reason why people oftentimes clamp down and refuse the next spoon that's coming in. So if we've just successfully had a few bites of lasagna, and now I'm changing to cool peaches, I'm going to let her know that. Tracy, the next bite is cold. It's peaches. There you go. And another bite of peaches. Most of what I'm sharing here today is anecdotal, but having done this for a number of years now and having worked with a lot of really fine retirement communities around the nation, I can tell you anecdotally, our experiences, we're certain that intake is improving for folks after we do this kind of coaching, assuming that the initiative is sustained. Now, we could also do what we call reminiscing cueing. For instance, if I know something a little bit personal about Tracy, I know that she used to can and put up peaches every summer, or she did tomatoes, or whatever the case may be. I may give her the peaches and say, Tracy, I know you canned a lot of peaches. Your kids tell me they couldn't get you out of the kitchen. You put them up and ate them all winter long.
They were good.
I wouldn't have the first idea how to do it.
I'll teach you.
We'll make a date of that. You notice I used some simple reminiscing cueing. I've already described friendship cueing and describing what is coming next. A key point, I think, for folks with dementia is to cue instead of do whenever possible. If you look at the slide here, you see a person with a piece of toast in his hand. He's going to be slow eating that. And he's going to fumble eating it a couple of times. And each time he fumbles, I know this particular caregiver is going to come over and she's going to put it in his hand again, and she's going to say, here you go. Let's take another bite. Might be a little bit slower for her to do it this way, but in giving him the chance to be successful, she's keeping those strengths that he has long into the disease process. If she were to take a shortcut and just start feeding him the toast on her own, she may get the job done, but in doing it, he's going to lose the strength that he still has and lose the ability he has to still feed himself. When your folks get it right in the dining room, as they very, very, very often do at St. James Place in Baton Rouge, when they get it right, you don't need an audit. You will see it with your own eyeballs and you will see it with your own ears. You see that in this simple interaction on this slide, it goes so much more beyond putting food in front of a person. They truly connected in that moment. As you listen to this type of cueing and coaching, I bet a lot of you are thinking, this would all be nice, but who has the time for this? And I am here to share with you, our experience has been, it takes so little time to do it right. It takes seconds. These interactions just take seconds more. When you add it all up, maybe, just maybe, we've had a grand total of 2 extra minutes of interaction. It takes seconds to do it right, but the impact really lasts. And I would argue, and I bet a lot of you would agree with me, that in doing it right, we save ourselves an enormous amount of time in different ways. We save ourselves having to go back because of a refusal and a refusal and a refusal. We save ourselves having to go and break up a resident-to-resident altercation. We save ourselves the effort of having to document when a person refused their meal or didn't take their meal. So doing it right, I think in this day and age, isn't only important for the person with dementia, but I think it's critical from an operations standpoint because we don't have the amount of time that we would always like. So we need to make the very, very best use of the time that we have. If you'd like more information about this sort of dementia coaching, I hope you'll visit us at our website at www.gemini-consulting.org. Also, I'd like you to be able to download this presentation and download other materials related to this presentation right here at the mmlearn.org website. To do that, press on the paper clip and you'll receive this session and other materials related to it. Also, it's critical for us that you take a few minutes to complete our online survey. This topic and all the topics at mmlearn.org are made possible through grant funding. That grant funding we rely on the surveys to receive that grant funding. So please take a few moments to fill out your survey to tell us what you thought about today's topic and what you'd like for future topics. Thank you very, very much for your interest in our topic today. For those of you here live, you have the opportunity now to answer some questions or to ask questions.
Hi, Erin. Can you give me some cues or tips to get the staff excited and to buy into this kind of dining program?
That's a fantastic question. How do you get the staff excited to buy into it? I can only tell you what I do in my coaching practice is we do a lot of this in a classroom ahead of time. We practice it. We have a Tracy, just like I had a Tracy, and we try to practice it in such a way that it's lighthearted and that it's fun and we kind of goof on each other. And then as soon as we practice it, we go right to the very next meal that the staff member works in, and we start doing it that very, very next meal so they don't have any time for it to go stale, if you will. That's one trick that's worked. It's probably not. That's probably a little bit oversimplistic, but it's a trick that I think is worth trying. Good question. Other questions? Well, if not, thank you very, very much for your time here today. Thank you.